Hi, Deacon Ed McCormick here on this beautiful fall afternoon. And today I want to share with you the powerful message of how Jesus and the gospel turns upside down our world's priorities and expectations. To really understand this message, we have to start with Jesus' vision of the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God for Jesus was not where we go when we die. It is not life in heaven after death. No, for him, the kingdom of God is the power and life of God, God's peace and justice coming into our world and changing everything. And therefore, nothing was as important as the coming of the kingdom of God. Neither family, nor parents, nor your job, nothing was as important as the coming of God's kingdom into our world. Think about this. In a world of violence, Jesus sees God's coming age of peace. In our world of injustice and cruelty, Jesus sees God's kingdom of justice coming in and changing hearts and minds. He sees God's love and presence and power healing people and freeing people and forgiving people and creating a new humanity. So for him, nothing is more important than the coming of the kingdom. Now, to appreciate how much this flips upside down the world's priorities and expectations, and ours, by the way, watch this scene that we saw in the gospel last week. Jesus is coming with his boys from a trip in northern Galilee, and he returns to his base camp in the village of Capernaum. And he's sitting in Peter's house at the table, and he knows that these guys have been talking about who's the most important, who's going to have the best seat among Jesus' leadership team, because they're thinking he's like King David, and they want to be his second in command. And Jesus pulls over Peter's little daughter, puts his arms around her, and says, "When you receive one as least as these, you receive me." Now, this is a shocking act on Jesus' part. Now, when we hear him putting his arms around a little child, we think of how we would do that with our little children. And we value children. We think it's important to be kind and affectionate and caring to our children. But that was not the case in the ancient world. Children were invisible, without status or power or privilege. They were worthless. They were disposable. They were the least. And for Jesus to put his arms around this child and call his disciples to prioritize the least, to welcome the least, he is turning upside down all the world's expectations, including ours. Even in our world today, children are not prioritized. Certainly girls around the world are not. Often women are not. People of color, the poor, people who suffer from disabilities and mental illness. If you're an illegal immigrant, if you don't have insurance, you are all demonized and diminished. And Jesus is saying that our priority should be on them. Now, in our world, in our Western Hemisphere, one of the people who fits in the category of the least has to be the people of Haiti. They have suffered an earthquake. They've suffered political anarchy. They're constantly suffering from devastating poverty and from all kinds of small warlords and warring factions. And we just watched our administration send men on horseback with whips to chase down these people as if we're back in slave days. And then we deport them rather than welcoming them. The gospel brings judgment down on this action. Rather than welcoming people who are in desperate need, we reject them. Another group to think about is the LBGT community. How has the church treated them? Have we welcomed them or have we condemned them? It doesn't mean we have to agree with everything they're about, but are we calling for crucify, crucify, or are we welcoming them and listening to them? The church has a long history of failing to welcome the least, whether it's African Americans or women or all kinds of other minorities, including children. And that there Jesus sits with his arms around every child, with his arms around the homeless child, the addict, every woman, every person of color, every immigrant. And he asks us, are you ready to be part of my mission and care for the least? Now, the real good news here is that the other group that Jesus puts his arm around is us, each of us. He comes and welcomes us in our pain and in our suffering. No matter what we've done, he welcomes us, embraces us. So I encourage you to be open to his embrace. Allow his love and his life to pour into your heart. Let it expand your heart and your mind and your arms. And you may find that you suddenly have the capacity to participate in his mission of reaching out to the least. See you in the next video.